The steady hum of the ultrasound machine filled the dim room, a soft rhythm meant to calm anxious mothers. But Harper Ellington, 7 months pregnant and exhausted from another sleepless night, could barely breathe. Her hands trembled slightly as she watched her baby's heartbeat flicker on the screen. It was the only thing in her life that still felt steady. "Everything looks normal," the doctor said gently. "But your stress levels are still high. You need rest, Harper. Rest." The word felt like a luxury she couldn't afford. Rent was overdue, her freelance projects were drying up, and Christopher, her husband, had barely spoken to her in days. He used to be tender when she talked about the baby. Now he acted like her growing belly was a burden. Her phone buzzed. She almost ignored it until she saw the name. Jenna Hawthorne, Christopher's new communications director. The woman whose perfume Harper smelled on his shirts. The woman who always seemed to whisper when Harper walked into Hailtech's office halls. Her stomach tightened. With a shaky breath, she tapped the notification. A video opened. At first, she saw nothing but dim lighting and tangled sheets. Then Christopher's voice, low, intimate, unmistakable, filled the room. Her heart stopped, her vision blurred. She tried to blink it away, but the image sharpened. Christopher and Jenna, wrapped around each other, laughing, kissing, touching as if Harper and the baby didn't exist. Then Jenna looked straight into the camera and whispered, "Hope this helps you understand where you belong." Harper's grip slipped, and the phone clattered onto the examination table. Her pulse thundered. The doctor turned in alarm, but Harper couldn't hear anything anymore. Not the machine, not her own breath. All she saw was betrayal. Her baby kicked suddenly, hard, as if reacting to her panic. Harper doubled over, gasping. "No, no, please." A nurse rushed forward. "Harper, are you all right? You're losing color." But Harper couldn't answer. All she could think was that her entire world had just collapsed in a single message. Her marriage, her safety, her baby's future. Then her phone buzzed again, another message from Jenna. This one wasn't a video. It was worse. And when Harper opened it, her nightmare truly began. Before the betrayal shattered her world, Harper Ellington had lived a life that looked quiet from the outside but required constant balancing from within. At 28, she worked as a lighting designer for small luxury hotels across New York. The job sounded glamorous, but in truth it meant long nights, inconsistent paychecks, and carrying a heavy lighting kit on the subway because ride shares were too expensive. Still, she loved crafting warm, intimate spaces for strangers, spaces she never quite had for herself. When Christopher walked into her life 3 years earlier, everything changed. He was polished, confident, a rising star in his family's tech corporation. His laughter filled a room the way his ambition filled conversations. He made her feel seen in a city that swallowed people whole. For the first time, Harper allowed herself to believe she deserved something gentle. But gentleness has a way of fading in men like Christopher. After their wedding at a chic rooftop venue in Tribeca, the warmth he once wrapped around her cooled almost overnight. He loved her most when she was quiet, agreeable, invisible. He loved her least when she expressed fear, discomfort, or hopes of her own. His excuses were endless. "Work is stressful. You're too sensitive. You're imagining things." Gaslighting delivered in a soft tone still bruises just as hard. When she became pregnant, she thought things would get better. Instead, Christopher became more distant, disappearing for nights with what he called mandatory networking. She believed him because believing otherwise would break her heart. And she needed her heart steady. She needed it for the baby. Meanwhile, their financial life, the one he insisted on controlling, grew more complicated. Documents he asked her to sign for tax purposes, bills she never saw, insurance that somehow didn't include maternity coverage. Christopher had a way of speaking that made her afraid to question him. She trusted him because trust was easier than truth. Her family in Oregon had cut contact a year earlier after she refused to leave Christopher during a bad argument. She told them she was fine, that things were improving. They told her she was lying, and until she chose herself, they couldn't watch her drown. She missed them every day, but shame has a way of gluing a person to silence. Now, sitting in the examination room, clutching her stomach while the echoes of that awful video still rang in her ears, she realized her fears had been right all along. Christopher wasn't just drifting away from her, he had already left her. Emotionally, physically, and now publicly. And then her phone buzzed again. This message wasn't from Jenna, it was from Christopher. And what he wrote made the video look merciful. New York had a way of magnifying everything: joy, pain, humiliation. The city didn't just witness your downfall, it projected it on skyscraper glass for the world to see. Harper felt that truth in her bones as she stepped out of the clinic, the cold wind slicing past her thin coat. She held her stomach protectively, whispering to her unborn child, "I'm okay. We're okay." Though she wasn't sure either was true. Brooklyn was supposed to be her safe place. Their apartment sat above a tiny bodega, the kind of place that smelled like fresh coffee in the morning and rain-damp cardboard at night. It wasn't fancy, but it was theirs at least until the landlord announced rent would increase next month. Christopher said he'd deal with it, which really meant Harper shouldn't bring it up again. She climbed the narrow staircase slowly. Each step made her chest tighten. She could still hear the video, still see Jenna's smug face, still feel the cold shock of betrayal running through her veins like poison. Inside, the apartment looked more like Christopher's temporary storage unit than a home. Branded tech boxes cluttered the kitchen table, his designer coats hung over chairs, a half-packed suitcase waited by the door as if he were always ready to leave. He treated their home the same way he treated her, something to walk through, not something to stay in. Harper's desk sat in the corner, a small island of hope. Sketches of lighting layouts, notes for clients, and a half-finished proposal for a boutique hotel in Midtown were spread across it. She had worked on that proposal for weeks, believing it might be the one that finally stabilized her freelance career. But lately, clients had grown distant. Some canceled without explanation. One even hinted Christopher had told them Harper was taking time off for emotional issues. She didn't understand it then, she did now. Her phone vibrated again. Christopher's message glowed on the screen. "We'll talk tonight. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." No apology, no shame, just a warning disguised as patience, the kind a man sends when he's already chosen someone else. She felt the room tilt, her breath shortened. She steadied herself on the counter, staring out the window at the Manhattan skyline in the distance, cold, glittering, impossibly far away. That same city held Christopher's entire world. Haletech Tower on Park Avenue, the executive floors where he strutted like royalty, and the boardroom where people whispered about promotions and mergers. That world did not include her. Not anymore. She replayed Jenna's message, her voice dripping with mock sympathy. "At least now you know your place." Harper's fingers curled into fists. For the first time in months, something inside her pushed back. A spark, a beginning. And at that exact moment, her phone lit up again, this time with a name she never expected. Landon Pierce was calling her. Christopher Hale had always been the kind of man people noticed before he even said a word. Tall, sharply dressed, with the quiet arrogance of someone who had never truly failed. Growing up as the golden son of the Haletech dynasty, he'd learned early that consequences were for other people, not him. Never him. He liked to describe himself as self-made, but the truth was, his life had been paved with opportunities his last name bought him. Harper used to find that charming. Now she understood it was entitlement disguised as confidence. At work, Christopher played the role of the disciplined, focused executive. He spoke in measured tones, tapped his Mont Blanc pen as if deep in thought, and pretended to listen whenever someone beneath him offered input. The board saw ambition. The employees saw intimidation. Harper had seen potential, at least in the beginning. She thought his hard edges came from pressure, not character. She was wrong. Then came Jenna Hawthorne. Jenna knew exactly what she wanted the moment she joined Haletech. Ambition burned in her like jet fuel. Her resume painted her as polished, strategic, driven. Her social media told another story, one built on curated seduction, filtered confidence, and a hunger for relevance. She didn't climb corporate ladders, she leapfrogged them. And Christopher was her quickest route upward. Their affair didn't start with passion, it started with leverage. A late meeting here, a confidential project there. Jenna laughed at his dry jokes, pressed her hand against his arm at company mixers, and let him believe he was irresistible. She understood men like Christopher. She knew exactly when to flatter, when to apologize, when to play the victim, and when to play the fantasy. He fell fast, not because he loved her, but because she fed the part of him that always needed validation. What Harper didn't know was that Christopher had already been preparing to remove her long before the video arrived. Subtle shifts in bank accounts, insurance forms she never fully read, conversations with attorneys disguised as work calls. Jenna encouraged it, whispering poisonous comfort into his ear. You deserve someone who doesn't hold you back. She's too emotional. Your image matters for the VP promotion. Every word sharpened Christopher's desire to cut Harper out quietly, cleanly, without public scandal. But when Harper got pregnant, everything complicated. To Jenna, the baby wasn't a human life. It was a threat. A tie Christopher might not sever, a sympathy card Harper might play, a delay in Jenna's rise to power. So Jenna pushed harder, and Christopher listened. He always listened to the wrong people. At Hailtech's sleek headquarters on Park Avenue, employees had begun whispering about the two of them. The late-night doors closing, the shared elevators, the tension that sparked when Harper occasionally visited the office, unaware she was walking into enemy territory. Jenna made sure those visits felt unwelcome. The stares, the smirks, the polite, cold greetings, all orchestrated, all intentional, and Harper, pregnant, tired, hopeful, never knew. Until the video. Now, as Harper stared at Christopher's name on her phone, her heart pounded with a dread she couldn't name. She feared anger, she feared humiliation, but she feared something else even more. What if the man she married was never who she thought he was? Her phone buzzed again. This time, Christopher wasn't texting, he was already outside her apartment door. Christopher didn't knock. He never knocked. He pushed the apartment door open, with the entitlement of someone who believed everything inside belonged to him, even the air Harper was struggling to breathe. He stepped in, wearing his navy suit, the one tailored on Fifth Avenue that made him look like a man with a future. Harper wondered if the suit was for her or for Jenna. Probably Jenna. You look awful, he said, not even glancing at her swollen eyes with a faint tremor in her hands. We need to talk. Harper swallowed hard, her voice barely a whisper. I saw the video. He didn't flinch, didn't deny, didn't apologize. He simply rolled his shoulders back, like a man preparing a speech. Good, then this will be easier. Our marriage hasn't been working. I've grown, you haven't. And with the baby coming, things are complicated. Complicated, as if their child were an expense on a spreadsheet. She steadied herself against the counter. You cheated on me, Christopher. Don't be dramatic. Jenna and I have a connection. You and I haven't had that in a long time. He walked past her, opening the fridge like he lived in a world where she wasn't shattering. Besides, the board expects stability. Jenna understands what's required. Harper covered her stomach instinctively. And what about your child? His jaw tightened. I told Jenna I'm handling that. Once we finalize the separation, you can move back to Oregon with your family. My family isn't speaking to me, she whispered. That's not my problem, he replied, brushing invisible lint from his sleeve. And you should know. I've already informed HR that you've been under emotional strain during pregnancy. It'll justify the separation. It keeps things clean. Harper felt her knees weaken. You told them I'm unstable? It's better than the alternative. I can't have scandal right before the VP vote. You should be grateful I'm being generous. Then he pulled his phone from his pocket, scrolling casually. And honestly, Harper, this baby isn't a reason for me to stay tied down. Not with what you've become. His words sliced deeper than the video ever could. But then something happened he didn't expect. His phone buzzed, then buzzed again. And again. Christopher frowned, checking the screen. Confusion hardened into horror. Why am I getting messages from the board? He muttered, scrolling faster. What the hell is this? Harper stepped closer, her breath catching when she saw the reflection on the darkened TV screen. It was the video. The one Jenna sent her. Except now it was everywhere. His notifications flashed non-stop. Executives, investors, even his father. Christopher's face drained of color. No. No, this isn't possible. The file was private. Harper shook her head slowly. Jenna sent it to me. Maybe she sent it to someone else too. Maybe someone forwarded it. Maybe this is just the beginning. He staggered back, gripping the counter. This could ruin everything. My promotion, my career. His panic felt like a distant echo. Harper wasn't thinking about him anymore. She was thinking about the baby, about survival, about the tiny spark inside her that refused to die. Then her phone rang, a number she didn't recognize. But the name attached to it made Christopher stop breathing. It was Landon Pierce, and he wasn't calling for Christopher. Harper didn't answer the call. She couldn't. Her hands were shaking too violently to swipe the screen, and her throat felt like it was closing. Her heart pounded so loudly she could hear nothing else. The apartment seemed to shrink around her walls, bending inward, air thinning, floor tilting. Christopher was still shouting, pacing, cursing under his breath as he tried to call someone at Hailtech, but his voice faded into a muffled hum. All Harper could hear was her baby's heartbeat echoing from memory. She stumbled toward the sofa, gripping the armrest as a wave of dizziness washed over her. Her breathing turned sharp and uneven. She pressed a palm to her chest, trying to steady it, but the panic kept rising, swallowing reason. The betrayal, the video, the messages, Christopher's cruelty, they spun together into something suffocating. Her vision blurred. Tears she hadn't realized she was holding back spilled freely. Christopher shot her a frustrated look. "Can you not fall apart right now? I need to think." His words hit her like cold water. She wished she had the strength to scream. She wished she had the strength to throw him out, but all she could do was hold her stomach as another cramp rippled through her. Fear rushed in. "Something's wrong," she whispered. He didn't move. "You're just stressed." "No," she said, breath trembling. "This feels different." Christopher returned to his phone. "I can't deal with this. I have to control the narrative before." Harper's knees buckled. She collapsed onto the couch, gripping the cushions as pain radiated across her abdomen. Her breathing shortened even more, turning into shallow gasps. Sweat gathered on her forehead. She felt like she was sinking underwater. She reached out. "Christopher, please." He took a step back. "Hospital visits cost money we don't have right now. Just calm down." His indifference shattered something inside her, a final breaking point she didn't know she had. She felt suddenly, painfully alone, like the city outside had swallowed her whole. The phone vibrated again. This time, it wasn't Landon calling. It was her doctor. Harper forced her trembling hand to reach for the device. The doctor's voice came through, steady but urgent. "Harper, we need you at the hospital immediately. Your test results came back. Your blood pressure is dangerously elevated. This can become life-threatening if untreated." The last pieces of her composure snapped. She tried to stand, but her legs refused to hold her. Panic surged higher, clawing at her lungs. "I can't. Christopher won't." The doctor's tone grew sharper. "Call an ambulance if you must. Do not delay. You and your baby are at risk." The line ended. Harper stared at Christopher, who hadn't heard a word. He was too busy yelling into his phone about false accusations and reputational damage. His entire world revolved around saving himself, not saving her. She realized then, with chilling clarity, that Christopher would rather let her collapse on the floor than let anything disrupt his career. Her hands shook harder. Tears blurred her vision. Her breath hitched painfully. The room dimmed around the edges as fear swallowed her. She whispered to her unborn child, "I'm so sorry. I'm trying." Then her phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. It read, "Harper, I'm outside. Open the door." She looked up, confused and terrified, because whoever sent that message was knocking insistently at that exact moment. The knocking grew louder, sharp and steady, cutting through the chaos in Harper's spinning mind. She tried to push herself upright, but the pressure in her chest made it feel impossible. Her breaths came out in short, painful bursts. Christopher, still pacing with his phone pressed to his ear, shot an irritated glance toward the door. "Who the hell is that?" he snapped. Harper didn't recognize the number, but something in her gut tightened. Whoever was outside wasn't just a passerby. Someone knew she needed help. The knocking came again, this time followed by a calm, authoritative voice. "Harper, it's Landon Pierce. Please open the door." Christopher froze. His phone slipped from his hand, clattering onto the hardwood floor. He spun toward Harper, panic widening his eyes for the first time since the video scandal erupted. "Why is he here?" he hissed, as if she had conspired against him. Harper couldn't speak. She could barely breathe. But the moment she heard Landon's name, a strange sense of clarity pushed through the haze. She had met him only twice, once at a Hailtech event, briefly, and once in a hallway when she had accidentally dropped her portfolio and he'd helped gather her papers. He'd been kind in a way executives rarely were, but she'd never given him her address. Christopher stormed toward the door. "He can't see you like this. He'll think I caused it. He'll destroy my promotion. Stay quiet." She didn't have the strength to argue. She didn't even have the strength to lift her hand. Christopher opened the door halfway, blocking the view. "Landon, this isn't a good." Landon pushed past him without asking. He was taller than Harper remembered, dressed in a charcoal overcoat dusted with snow. His expression wasn't cold, it was controlled, purposeful, like a man who had already calculated the outcome of every scenario. His eyes landed on Harper immediately, and the transformation in his face was instant. Gone was the boardroom composure. In its place, swift alarm. "She's in hypertensive distress," he said sharply. "She needs immediate medical attention." Christopher stepped between them. "This is private. She's exaggerating. You can't just—" Landon raised a hand, cutting him off. "If you keep standing in my way, you're going to watch her lose consciousness right in front of you." Harper felt the room blur again, dark spots forming at the edges of her vision. Landon moved toward her, kneeling beside the sofa with surprising gentleness, his voice lowering to something calm, steady, grounding. "Harper, can you hear me?" he asked. She nodded weakly. "Good. I'm taking you to the hospital. You and the baby are not safe here." Christopher sputtered behind him. "You can't just take my wife anywhere. This is a domestic matter. She's fine." Landon turned his head slowly, and the coldness in his gaze made Christopher step back. "She is not fine, and legally, a medical emergency overrides your ego." He slipped an arm behind Harper to help her sit up. She felt her body tilt, her limbs numb, her breath trembling. For the first time all day, someone was choosing her without hesitation, without blame, without conditions. Christopher slammed his fist against the counter. "If you walk out with her, you're sabotaging my promotion. You know the board is watching me. You're doing this on purpose." Landon didn't even look at him. "I don't need to sabotage you, Christopher. You already did that yourself." Then he lifted Harper carefully into his arms. She let her head fall against his shoulder, overwhelmed by fear and relief all tangled together. The world dimmed again, but not from panic, this time from sheer exhaustion. As Landon carried her out the door, she heard Christopher shouting behind them, but his voice grew smaller with every step. Then a new sound buzzed from Christopher's abandoned phone. A notification. A second. A third. Landon looked down at Harper as he reached the stairwell. "Harper," he murmured, "you need to know something. That video, it didn't leak by accident." Her eyes fluttered open, confused. Before she could speak, he added quietly, "Jenna wasn't the one who sent it." The hospital room was quiet except for the steady rhythm of monitors. Harper lay propped against crisp white pillows, her breathing finally even, her baby's heartbeat back to a reassuring pace. The night before had blurred into a haze of flashing ambulance lights, urgent hands, and Landon's voice steady, grounding, constant. He had stayed until dawn, leaving only when the nurses insisted she needed rest. They told her he waited outside the entire night. When Harper opened her eyes the next morning, something inside her had shifted. The fear was still there, lingering like a bruise, but beneath it was something else, a small, unfamiliar spark. Determination. For the first time in months, she wasn't collapsing beneath her pain, she was standing on the edge of something new. A nurse brought her a bag. "Someone dropped this off for you," she said with a smile. Inside was a soft cashmere sweater, maternity jeans that actually fit, and a note in Landon's clean handwriting. "You deserve comfort. And choices. Choices." The word settled inside her like warmth. When she left the hospital that afternoon, she didn't go back to the Brooklyn apartment. She let the Uber take her to a small extended-stay hotel in Midtown, one she'd passed 100 times but never imagined herself entering. The room wasn't fancy, but it was clean, quiet, and hers free of Christopher's shouting, Jenna's perfume, and the ghosts of expectations she'd failed to meet. She spent the next morning sitting at the small desk by the window, staring at her reflection in the glass. Her face looked pale, thinner, but her eyes looked alive in a way they hadn't in years. She pulled out her sketch pad and began designing again. Not for clients, not for invoices, but for herself. Light fixtures, room layouts, immersive spaces, her passion poured out as if it had been waiting in the dark for a door to open. By lunchtime, she felt strong enough to step outside. She walked through Midtown, the winter air crisp against her cheeks. New York felt different now. Still loud, still unforgiving, but no longer suffocating. She wasn't invisible anymore. She wasn't trapped. She was rebuilding. When she passed a salon, she paused. Her reflection looked back at her tired, worn, but ready. She pushed the door open before she could doubt herself. 2 hours later, she stepped out with soft waves framing her face, lighter and freer than the heavy hair she had carried for years. The stylist had looked at her in the mirror and said, "You look like someone who just reclaimed her life." Harper walked further down the street and caught sight of a boutique window. A dress caught her eye. Simple, elegant, something she would have never bought when Christopher controlled her every decision. She entered the boutique, tried it on, and didn't think twice when she paid. For once, she didn't apologize to herself for wanting something beautiful. Back in her hotel room, she stood before the mirror wearing the dress, the new hairstyle, the soft sweater draped over her shoulders. She barely recognized herself, but in the best possible way. This was the woman she was meant to be. This was the woman Christopher never let her become. As she admired the reflection, her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. The text was brief, but it sent a chill down her spine. A photo of her walking out of the salon. Someone was watching her, and they sent a second message right after one that made her blood run cold. The second message froze Harper where she stood. Her hands trembled as she opened it. It was a close-up photo of Christopher and Jenna entering Hailtech's private elevator earlier that morning, time-stamped, the angle suggesting it had been taken from inside the building. Below it, a single line. "You deserve to know everything." No signature, no explanation. But it didn't feel threatening. It felt intentional, almost protective. Someone wasn't watching her to intimidate her. Someone was watching to guide her. Still shaken, Harper slipped into the hotel's armchair, clutching her phone to her chest. Her mind raced. Who would send this? Why now? And what did they want her to do? She closed her eyes and inhaled deeply. The fear that once controlled her had transformed into something sharper resolve. She wasn't going to hide anymore. Not from Christopher, not from Jenna, not from the truth. As if summoned by that thought, her phone rang again. Landon. She hesitated only a second before answering. "Harper," he said, voice low and steady. "Are you safe?" She exhaled shakily. "Someone sent me photos. Someone who knows about Christopher." There was a pause on his end. Not surprise recognition. "You're not alone in this," he said quietly. "But you need to come to Hailtech today. There's a board meeting at 5, and you deserve to hear what's about to be discussed." A board meeting, the same one Christopher had been obsessing over, the one he believed would secure his VP title. Harper tightened her grip on the phone. "Why would I go there?" "Because the truth has a way of dying in closed rooms," Landon replied, "unless someone walks in and forces the doors open." His words planted themselves like iron in her spine. "I'll come," she whispered. By 4:30, Harper stood outside Hailtech Tower, dressed in the simple, elegant dress she bought the day before, her new haircut softening her features but sharpening her presence. Employees streamed past her into the revolving doors, chattering about internal rumors swirling since the leaked video. Their voices buzzed like static, but Harper kept walking, one hand resting on her stomach, the other clutching her small handbag. Inside the lobby, security guards stiffened at the sight of her. Some recognized her from past visits. Their eyes widened, not with pity, but with anticipation. She made her way to the elevator bank, and before she could press the button, a guard approached. "Miss Ellington?" he asked. She nodded. "Mr. Pierce said to escort you directly upstairs." Her pulse quickened. So, he was expecting her. The elevator rose smoothly, the city shrinking beneath her. When the doors opened onto the executive floor, the hum of conversation died instantly. Heads turned. Whispers rippled across the glass hall. Employees who once dismissed her now stared with a mixture of curiosity and fear. Christopher must have heard the commotion, because his voice echoed before he appeared. "What is she doing here?" He stormed down the hallway, face flushed, eyes wild. Jenna followed a step behind, pale and nervous. Christopher stopped only a few feet from Harper, lowering his voice to a harsh whisper. "You can't be here. You're embarrassing yourself." Harper lifted her chin. "I'm attending the board meeting." His laugh was sharp, forced. "That meeting has nothing to do with you." It does, a new voice said. Landon stepped out of the glass conference room. Calm, composed, impeccably dressed in his tailored gray suit, his presence sent a visible ripple through the floor. Even Christopher straightened, instinctively intimidated. Landon looked directly at Harper. "Miss Ellington is here as a witness," he said. "Her presence is not optional." The hallway fell silent. Christopher's face went white. Jenna stumbled back. Harper stood her ground. Then Landon gently rested a hand on the conference room door and added, "It's time everyone sees what really happened behind closed doors." The conference room felt impossibly bright, the kind of sterile white that made every flaw, every tremor, every lie stand out like ink on glass. The Hailtech board members sat in a crescent formation around the polished table, their eyes sharp with curiosity and thinly masked judgment. They weren't used to drama entering their kingdom of quarterly reports and strategic forecasts. But today, drama had invited itself in. Harper entered slowly, her hand resting protectively on her stomach. Every step felt deliberate, anchored by a strength she wasn't sure she possessed weeks ago. Landon stayed near her, not guiding her, not leading her, but standing in silent solidarity, a presence that steadied her pulse. Christopher, on the other hand, moved like a man walking toward a noose. His confidence had evaporated, replaced by frantic hostility. He shot Harper a venomous glare before taking his seat, and Jenna hovered near the wall, trying to appear invisible. But nothing about this moment would allow her invisibility, not after what she had done. The chairman cleared his throat. "We are here to address a matter that has escalated beyond internal discretion. Mr. Pierce, you requested this session. Proceed." Landon stepped forward, tapping a folder against his palm. "Thank you. Before we begin, I want the board to understand that this is not a case of scandal for scandal's sake. It is a pattern of unethical behavior conducted by a senior member of this company and covered up with deliberate manipulation." Christopher lunged to his feet. "This is blown out of proportion. Whatever rumors you heard." Landon silenced him with a single raise of his hand, the gesture firm but calm. "Sit down, Christopher. Every person in this room saw the video. But that footage is only the surface." Whispers broke out among the board. Jenna swallowed hard, shrinking further into her seat. Landon opened the folder and turned toward Harper. "Miss Ellington, would you please tell the board what happened when you received that recording?" Harper felt every pair of eyes land on her. She inhaled slowly. "I was at the hospital. They were checking my baby's heartbeat. I opened a message from Jenna, and it was..." Her voice wavered, but she steadied it. "It was meant to break me. And Christopher never apologized. He told me I was a burden. He told me I should leave New York before his promotion." A board member leaned forward. "You're saying Christopher intended to conceal misconduct before the VP vote?" "Not just conceal it," Landon said. "He weaponized it. He also misrepresented his wife's medical condition to HR to preemptively protect himself from accountability." Gasps spread across the room like wildfire. Jenna snapped. "That's not true. Christopher told me she was unstable," he said. "She couldn't handle stress." Landon fixed her with a cold stare. "Miss Hawthorne, you will get your turn, and you may want to consider your words carefully." Christopher shot up again, face red. "This is a personal attack. She's lying to get sympathy. She wants money." Harper didn't flinch. "I want the truth." Landon placed another document on the table. "And the truth is, in the paper trail, these are emails between Christopher and Jenna, discussions about pressuring Harper into leaving, conversations about staging her emotional breakdown, financial forms filed without her knowledge, and most damaging plans to silence anyone aware of their affair until after the board's vote." The room erupted. Voices overlapped. Shock, anger, disbelief. Christopher lunged toward the documents. "You stole those. You can't use them." "I didn't steal them," Landon replied coolly. "They were sent anonymously to my office." He turned slightly, just enough for Harper to understand the hidden message. Someone was on her side long before she realized she needed one. The chairman slammed his gavel onto the table. "Enough. This board will review the evidence. But as of now, Christopher Hale is suspended pending investigation." Christopher's face crumpled. "You can't do this. I gave my life to this company." "You gave your life to your ego," Landon replied. Harper watched as Christopher stumbled backward, pale, stunned, ruined. Jenna began crying, realizing her own downfall was seconds behind his. Just as the board prepared to adjourn, a new notification appeared on the screen behind them, another file automatically uploaded into the system. No one had touched the controls. The chairman frowned. "What is that?" Landon's expression darkened. Because the file's title was Truth, Part 2. The boardroom's massive screen flickered as the unexpected file began to load, the blue progress bar crawling across the bottom like a warning. Everyone froze, board members mid-breath, Jenna mid-sob, Christopher mid-panic. Harper felt her pulse thrum in her throat. She wasn't sure whether to brace herself or look away. Something about the file's title, Truth, Part 2, carried the heavy weight of finality. Landon stepped forward, his jaw tightening. "No one in this room touches anything," he instructed the IT technician hovering near the console. "Let it play." The chairman nodded stiffly. "Proceed." The screen went black for a moment. Then audio crackled to life. A voice filled the room. Christopher's voice. Except this time, he wasn't whispering sweet nonsense to Jenna. He wasn't charming. He wasn't careful. He sounded cruel, calculated. The way he sounded behind closed doors. "Once she's out of the picture, everything falls into place," his recorded voice said. "The board sees me as stable. Jenna boosts my image. And Harper? She'll leave as long as we pressure her hard enough. She doesn't have family here. She has nowhere else to go." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Harper's throat tightened. Her fingers curled instinctively around the edge of the conference table. She remembered that night, remembered begging Christopher to talk to her, to slow down, to stop accusing her of being dramatic. She never knew Jenna had been recording. Jenna let out a strangled sob. "Christopher, you told me that recording was deleted." Christopher rounded on her. "Why would you keep something like that? Are you insane?" "It wasn't me," Jenna cried. "I deleted everything you told me to. I swear." But the recording wasn't finished. The next voice made the entire room turn to stone. It was a woman's voice, older, sharper, stern. "Christopher's mother. You married beneath you," she said. "Harper was a mistake. This child is a mistake. End this marriage quietly. We can't risk a scandal before the succession vote." Harper's breath hitched painfully. She had always known her mother-in-law disliked her, but hearing her unborn child dismissed as a mistake, felt like someone had reached inside her chest and torn something loose. Another voice entered the recording. A man. Firm, cold. Christopher's father. "Handle it before she realizes her legal rights," he warned. "If she stays long enough, she will be entitled to more than we want her to have." The chairman's face drained of color. He turned slowly toward Christopher. "You involved your parents in suppressing misconduct? You attempted to manipulate legal proceedings within this company to conceal an affair and coerce your wife into leaving the state?" Christopher stumbled back, sweat gathering on his forehead. This is taken out of context. It's edited. Someone is framing me. Landon, you have to believe me." Landon didn't move. His voice was quiet, almost too controlled. "This file was sent from an internal Hailtech server." Every head in the room snapped toward him. "Meaning," he continued, "someone inside this building witnessed everything. Someone who has been documenting Christopher's actions for months." Jenna collapsed into her chair, head in her hands. Christopher shook violently, his breath turning ragged. His parents' voices echoed around him like ghosts tightening a noose. Finally, Christopher snapped. He slammed his palms onto the table. "Fine," he shouted. "Yes, we planned to push her out. Harper was ruining everything I had to protect my future." The admission hung in the air like poison. No one spoke. No one breathed. Even the hum of the city outside seemed to fall away. Then the chairman straightened. His voice cut through the silence like steel. "Mr. Hale, you are hereby terminated from Hailtech, effective immediately. Security will escort you from the premises. Legal action will follow." Christopher lunged toward Harper, not violently, but desperately, as if she were the only lifeline left in a sea of consequences. "Harper, don't let them do this," he pleaded, voice cracking. "You owe me." She stepped back. She owed him nothing. As security guards moved in, a door at the far end of the conference room creaked open. Everyone turned. A woman entered slowly, someone Harper hadn't seen in almost a year. Her mother. And she looked like she had come to finish what the recording started. For a moment, Harper couldn't move. She stood frozen as her mother stepped into the boardroom, the sharp click of her heels echoing against the polished floors. Margaret Ellington had always possessed a presence that filled any room. But today she carried something heavier, a quiet fury tempered by heartbreak. Harper felt her throat tighten. They hadn't spoken in nearly a year. The last time they had, Harper had defended Christopher, insisting he was simply stressed, insisting she could fix things. Her mother had warned her then. Her mother had begged her to come home. Harper hadn't listened. Now Margaret crossed the room slowly, her eyes never leaving her daughter's face. "Harper," she said softly, voice breaking with relief and regret. "You're safe. Thank God you're safe." Harper's lips parted, but no sound came. Before she could gather herself, Christopher yanked against the security guards, restraining him. "Why is she here?" he barked. "This is a private corporate meeting." Margaret turned toward him, cool and unmoved. "You forfeited privacy the moment you recorded plans to destroy my daughter's life." She stepped closer, eyes narrowing. "And the moment you nearly put my grandchild at risk?" Christopher tried to twist away, but the guards held him firmly. "She abandoned her family for me." He spat. "She chose me." Margaret didn't flinch. "She chose the version of you she thought existed." The board members exchanged uneasy glances. They weren't accustomed to emotional truths weaving through corporate scandals, but no one dared interrupt. Harper swallowed hard. "Mom, how did you know to come?" Margaret exhaled. "Because someone sent me that recording before the board received it. Someone knew you needed protection." Harper's breath caught. "Who?" Before her mother could answer, Landon stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "Miss Ellington is correct. An anonymous source has been feeding me evidence for weeks." He paused, eyes sweeping the room. "And they've been tracking Christopher's actions longer than any of us realized." Jenna's head jerked up, eyes wide with panic. "I didn't do it, I swear. If I had those recordings, I would have destroyed them." "No," Landon said quietly. "You didn't create the recordings." He looked at Harper. "You only participated in them." Jenna's face crumpled as tears spilled down her cheeks, but no one moved to comfort her. Harper steadied herself. "If it wasn't her, then who?" The chairman cleared his throat, picking up a printed document that had been slid under the conference door sometime during the chaos. This note came with the last file. He handed it to Harper. With trembling fingers, she unfolded the paper. The handwriting was unfamiliar, precise, neat. It read, "I watched him lie. I watched him manipulate. I watched him destroy you piece by piece. I couldn't let it continue. I'm sorry it took me so long. You deserved better from all of us." There was no name. But at the bottom was an employee ID number. One that made Landon inhale sharply. He whispered, "Oh my God." The chairman leaned in. "Mr. Pierce, do you recognize this ID?" Landon nodded slowly. "Yes, it belongs to someone who hasn't been seen in months. Someone, Christopher, forced into medical leave after she reported harassment." Harper felt her pulse spike. "Who?" she whispered. Landon hesitated only a moment. Then he said the name, Evelyn Ward. A stunned silence swept the room. Evelyn, Christopher's former executive assistant. The woman who had always been kind to Harper, always polite, always careful. Harper remembered Evelyn's strained smile the last time they spoke. She remembered the bruise on her wrist Evelyn dismissed as clumsiness. But Harper never imagined. Margaret rested a reassuring hand on her daughter's shoulder. Before Harper could speak, someone else appeared in the doorway. A woman, thin, pale, nervous. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "I'm Evelyn. And I'm ready to tell you everything." And the truth she carried would change the entire direction of Harper's revenge. Evelyn stood in the doorway like a shadow, stepping into the light for the first time in years. She looked fragile, too thin, shoulders hunched, eyes rimmed red as if tears had permanently carved themselves there. But beneath the exhaustion was something else. A glint, a resolve not yet extinguished. The boardroom fell utterly silent. Christopher froze mid-struggle, his face draining of color. "You," he whispered, as if seeing a ghost. "You're supposed to be on medical leave. Why are you even here?" Evelyn's voice was quiet but steady. "Because I'm done being afraid of you." She stepped inside, the guards instinctively shifting to block Christopher. Landon moved toward her with a gentleness Harper had only ever seen him use with her. "Evelyn," he said softly, "you don't have to do this unless you're ready." "I've been ready since the day he ruined my life," she replied. Her gaze swept the room before settling on Harper, hesitant, apologetic, pained. And since the day he started ruining yours. Harper swallowed hard. You tried to warn me once, didn't you? A tear slipped down Evelyn's cheek. I did. But he fired me before I could say more. He told the board I was mentally unstable. She looked at Christopher sharply, just like he tried to do to her. Christopher shook his head violently. She's lying. She was incompetent, unstable, irrational. Evelyn's laugh was brittle. I have every email, every message, every directive you sent, ordering me to rewrite documents, hide invoices, and forge timestamps. She pulled out a small flash drive. This contains the proof of everything you did, not just to Harper, to employees, to clients, to me. A ripple of alarm spread across the table. The chairman leaned forward. Miss Ward, are you willing to submit this evidence to the board? Evelyn nodded. I didn't collect it to protect myself. I collected it because one day I knew he'd hurt someone who mattered too much to stay silent. Her eyes met Harper's again. Harper's chest tightened. Why me? Because you were kind, Evelyn whispered, and because I saw what he was doing, slowly isolating you, pushing you into panic, taking away your support until you would agree to anything. She inhaled shakily. I watched him plan it. He wanted you gone, Harper. Out of the city, out of his reputation, out of his way. Harper felt the room tilt, not with panic, but with something sharper. A rising heat, anger, recognition, justice calling her forward. Jenna suddenly erupted, pointing at Evelyn. You're just trying to blame me to save yourself. You were always jealous. Evelyn cut her off with a surprising steel. I warned you too. I told you he'd ruin you next, but you were too busy believing he'd replace his wife with you. Jenna staggered back, as if slapped. Christopher snarled, I'll sue all of you. I'll burn this entire company down before I lose. The chairman slammed the gavel. You have already lost. Security tightened around him. Landon exhaled slowly. Evelyn, your courage is the reason this company can begin to repair the damage he caused. Thank you. She nodded, but her gaze drifted again to Harper. There's more, she said quietly. Something you need to see before any final decisions are made. Harper felt her pulse quicken. What is it? Evelyn's trembling hands reached into her coat and pulled out a sealed envelope. She held it out like an offering, her expression solemn. This, Evelyn whispered, is the part Christopher never wanted you to discover. Harper hesitated, staring at the envelope. Her name was written on the front, in unfamiliar handwriting, neat, deliberate, almost formal. Landon stepped closer, voice low. You don't have to open it here. But Harper knew she had to. She slid her finger beneath the seal. The envelope unfolded. Her eyes widened. Her mother gasped. Landon stiffened. Evelyn stepped back, tears flooding her eyes as she whispered, This is the secret he hid from you since the beginning. The paper trembled between Harper's fingers as she unfolded it fully. At first, the words didn't make sense. Lines of legal jargon, stamped signatures, dates she recognized but never understood. Then, the bold header at the top came into focus. Premarital, financial, and medical agreement. Her stomach dropped. She felt suddenly weightless, as if the floor had been ripped from under her. Her mother stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. Harper, he made you sign this? Harper swallowed hard. I don't remember this form. But she did. A flash of memory pierced through her, Christopher handing her a stack of papers the night before their small courthouse ceremony, insisting everything was routine insurance paperwork, insisting she didn't need to read them, insisting they were already late for dinner with his parents. She had signed them quickly, trusting the man who had promised to protect her. Her eyes scanned the paragraphs now with growing horror. The document stated that in the event of a separation or divorce, Harper would forfeit rights to all marital assets. Harper would have no claim to Hailtech shares. Harper would receive no spousal support. And most devastating of all, Christopher would be designated primary decision-maker for all medical decisions involving their future children. Her hands shook violently. He tricked me, she whispered. He tricked me into signing away everything. Evelyn nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. He boasted about it, said you were too in love, too naive to question him. He told me once that you were inconvenient but manageable. Margaret's eyes burned with fury. This is coercion. This is fraud. The chairman leaned forward, face grim. This document alone could trigger a criminal investigation. Christopher thrashed against the guards, shouting, She signed it willingly. She didn't care about the details. But Harper wasn't listening to him anymore. She was staring at the last section of the document, a handwritten addition, initialed by Christopher and someone else. Evelyn pointed to the initials. That's his mother's handwriting. She added that clause. She wanted control of your child before the child even existed. Margaret inhaled sharply. They were planning your erasure from the moment you married him. Harper felt the room close in, her lungs tightening. Not from fear this time, from anger so sharp it steadied her. For years she had blamed herself. For being too trusting, too forgiving, too hopeful. But this wasn't her failure. This was their plan. Landon stepped closer, his voice low. Harper, there's more. She looked up, eyes burning. What more could there be? Gently, he handed her a second page. Evelyn had found something that looked like an internal memo. She scanned it quickly, confusion hardening into disbelief. It wasn't about her. It was about the baby. The memo outlined a proposal Christopher had discussed with his parents, a plan to petition for partial custody immediately after birth, claiming Harper was psychologically unstable and unfit for independent childcare. Harper felt a cold tear slide down her cheek. He wanted to take my baby. Landon didn't soften the truth. Yes. Christopher lunged again. You couldn't provide for a child. I would have gotten full custody eventually. My family has resources. You should be grateful we even considered. Harper cut him off with a voice that didn't shake. You were never going to let me be this child's mother. Silence swept the room. Deadly. Absolute. Evelyn stepped closer, her voice trembling. There is one more thing. The real reason the recordings were sent. Harper turned slowly. Why? Evelyn's expression softened with something like guilt. Because you weren't the only woman he manipulated, and someone he hurt couldn't bear to watch him do it again. Harper's brows furrowed. Who? Before Evelyn could answer, her mother drew in a sharp breath. Everyone turned toward the hallway. A teenage girl stood there. She looked terrified. She looked familiar. She whispered, I'm his daughter. For a moment, the room forgot how to breathe. The teenage girl stood in the doorway, thin, trembling, barely 16, wearing an oversized hoodie as if she'd tried to fold herself into invisibility. Her eyes, wide and frightened, darted from Harper to Christopher, then to Evelyn, as if searching for a place where she might belong. Christopher's face twisted into something Harper had never seen before, raw panic. Emily, he rasped. What are you doing here? Emily. The name hit Harper like a blow to the chest. She looked at the girl again. Really looked. The resemblance was impossible to deny now, the same shape of the jaw, the same eyes when Christopher was pretending sincerity. But this girl held none of his arrogance. Only fear. Evelyn stepped toward her gently. It's okay, you're safe. Emily shook her head, tears forming. No, I'm not. Not if he sees me. Christopher lunged, but the guards blocked him instantly. Who brought her here? She has no right, she doesn't belong. Margaret stepped in front of Harper instinctively, as if shielding not just her daughter but her unborn grandchild. Christopher, stop speaking. Every word you say worsens your case. Emily took a shaky breath. I sent the recordings. A stunned silence washed across the room. You? Harper whispered. Emily nodded, knuckles white as she clutched her sleeves. I found them on his old laptop. He used to forget to lock it. I saw everything. The videos, the emails. The messages about you, about the baby. Her voice cracked. About me. She looked at Christopher, eyes filling. You told my mother you'd help us. You told her she'd be taken care of. But after I was born, you never came back. You pretended we didn't exist. She lost her job protecting your secrets, and you left us with nothing. Christopher's face darkened. Your mother should have never kept you, I told her. Stop talking, Landon warned sharply. But Emily wasn't finished. She got sick last year. She couldn't afford treatment. I emailed you. I called your office. I left messages. Only Evelyn responded. She tried to help, but you fired her for it. Emily wiped her cheek. When Mom died, I didn't know who else to turn to. Then I saw how you treated Harper, how you talked about her, how you planned to steal her baby. Her voice rose, trembling with courage she didn't know she had. I wasn't going to let you ruin another life. Jenna collapsed into a chair, buried beneath her own devastation. Board members stared at Christopher with something beyond disgust, revulsion. The chairman pinched the bridge of his nose. Mr. Hale, this goes far beyond ethical misconduct. This is abandonment, corporate fraud, and moral corruption at a level I have never seen. Christopher screamed, "She's lying. She's not my daughter. Look at her. This is all a setup to destroy me." But Landon was already pulling out his phone. "I have a copy of Emily's birth certificate, submitted anonymously 2 weeks ago." He held up the screen. "Father, Christopher Hale." Christopher stilled, completely. Harper felt something unexpected rise in her chest, not just anger, but clarity. The truth had peeled away every layer of manipulation he ever built. Emily stepped closer to Harper. "I'm sorry. I didn't know what else to do. I didn't want him to hurt you like he hurt us." Harper felt tears burn her eyes. "You didn't hurt me," she whispered. "You saved me." Emily collapsed into her arms, trembling. Harper held her as if the girl were already part of her family. Landon cleared his throat. "There's enough evidence here to open both a criminal and civil case." Christopher roared, "You can't do this. I am Haletech. This company needs me." "No," Landon said calmly. "This company needs integrity." Harper lifted her chin. For the first time since all of this began, she was no longer just defending herself. She was standing up for her unborn child. For Evelyn, for Emily, for every wound Christopher had caused. Then, suddenly, the lights in the boardroom flickered. A technician burst through the door, breathless. "Mr. Pierce, we have a problem. Someone just triggered a system-wide broadcast to every employee in the building." Landon's eyes narrowed. "A broadcast of what?" The technician swallowed. "The audio file. All of it." And across 42 floors of Haletech, Christopher's downfall began playing on every screen. The moment the audio file began blasting across all 42 floors of Haletech, the building seemed to inhale sharply. Employees froze mid-task. Phones dropped. Conversations died. Every screen from the lobby monitors to the executive floor tablets flashed the same title: Hale Misconduct, Internal Evidence. Then Christopher's own voice filled the hallways. It echoed through the cybersecurity wing. It rolled through the product labs. It thundered through the cafeteria, where hundreds of employees sat in stunned silence. His confession, his cruelty, his plans, every word. There was no containing it now. In the boardroom, Christopher's scream cracked through the air. "Turn it off! Do you hear me? Turn it off!" Security restrained him, but he fought like a cornered animal. "You're destroying me. Landon, you can't let this happen. I deserve that VP position." Harper watched him thrash and tremble, not with triumph, but with a strange sense of distance. The man she once loved had become unrecognizable. And maybe he always had been. Call it healing, call it awakening. But in this moment, Harper knew one thing with absolute clarity. She had survived the worst version of him. He would never touch her life again. Landon approached her quietly. "Harper, you should step outside. This will only get louder." But Harper shook her head. "No, I'm not running anymore." Her voice didn't shake. Margaret squeezed her daughter's arm, pride shining through her anger. Evelyn and Emily stood nearby, forming a circle around Harper like a shield. A family born from wounds, yet stronger for them. Board members filtered out of the room, hurried whispers trailing after them as they rushed to process the magnitude of the scandal. Some looked shaken, some embarrassed, some furious, but all of them understood one thing: Haletech would never be the same. When the hallway cleared, Harper stepped forward. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "Christopher," she said softly. He stopped struggling. For the first time, he looked afraid, not of losing his job, not of the board, but of facing the woman he underestimated for years. "You tried to break me," she said, "but you only broke the lies you built your life on." He shook his head weakly. "You don't understand. Without Haletech, I have nothing." "You had a wife," Harper replied. "You had a daughter. You had a child on the way, but you threw all of it away." He sagged against the guards, breath ragged. "Please, please, just give me a chance." Harper exhaled, calm and resolute. "I gave you years." Behind her, Emily wiped her eyes. Evelyn placed a hand on the girl's shoulder. Margaret watched her daughter transform into someone unbreakable. The broadcast finally cut off. A heavy silence settled over the building. Landon checked his phone, reading a flood of messages. He looked up, expression grave. The media already caught wind. Someone leaked the file externally. Reporters are gathering outside. Christopher's knees buckled. Harper did not waver. Let them hear it, she said. Landon nodded, admiration flickering in his gaze. There's one more thing, Harper. The board wants to speak with you privately. They're considering legal compensation based on what you endured. Harper blinked. Me? Evelyn smiled faintly. You started telling the truth, and truth has power. Emily stepped closer, voice soft. Can I come with you? I don't want to face the reporters alone. Harper placed a gentle hand on her cheek. You're not alone anymore. The group moved toward the elevator, but before they reached it, a security guard hurried toward them. There's an issue outside, he warned. The press is pushing past the barricades. They're demanding a statement from the victim. Harper froze. The victim? She repeated. Yes, the guard said. You. She swallowed hard. This was the moment everything turned public. The moment she would no longer be just a woman betrayed. She would become the face of his downfall. Landon stepped beside her. You don't have to speak if you're not ready. But Harper lifted her chin. I am. The elevator doors slid open, and as Harper stepped inside, she didn't know a new enemy was already waiting downstairs. The elevator doors slid open to the ground floor, and the sound hit Harper first, a roar of voices, shouting, overlapping questions, camera shutters snapping like frantic wings. The lobby of Hailtech, normally pristine and quiet, was now a battlefield of reporters pushing against security barricades. Microphones poked through gaps, phones hovered in the air. News vans lined the sidewalk outside like a siege. Harper inhaled sharply. The walls felt closer, the marble floors suddenly too bright. But Emily squeezed her hand, and Margaret stepped protectively beside her. Landon stood just behind them, his presence steady as bedrock. A security officer approached. Miss Ellington, we can escort you through the service exit. You don't have to face this. But Harper shook her head. If I hide, he wins. The guard nodded but looked uneasy. We strengthened the line, but the reporters, they're eager. And someone out there is stirring them. Stirring them? Before Harper could ask what he meant, the doors opened wider and the crowd surged. Harper, do you have a comment on your husband's removal? Is it true he tried to take custody of your unborn child? Did you leak the files yourself for financial gain? Are the allegations exaggerated? Is Hailtech paying you to stay quiet? Pain flashed behind Harper's ribs. Accusations were knives when thrown in enough numbers. Landon's voice boomed over the chaos. Back up! Give her space! But the cameras only pushed closer. A microphone nearly hit Harper's cheek before security shoved it away. Why are you attacking her? Margaret snapped. She's pregnant. Back off. The crowd didn't back off. Instead, it parted, like someone was forcing their way through. At first, Harper thought it might be another reporter, someone bolder and louder, but then she saw the face and felt her body go rigid. Jenna Hawthorne stepped forward, hair disheveled, makeup smeared, eyes burning with a fury that had replaced fear. Reporters pivoted instantly, microphones swinging toward her as if she were gasoline poured on open flame. Jenna, someone shouted, is it true you were manipulated by Christopher Hale? Manipulated? Jenna spat, eyes blazing. I was used, lied to, promised everything and given nothing. And now you're all looking at her. She jabbed a finger at Harper, like she's the victim? She's not the only one he hurt. Landon moved between them. Jenna, step back. But Jenna's rage wasn't aimed at him. It was aimed at Harper. You ruined everything, Jenna hissed. You played the wounded wife, and everyone bought it. You don't deserve sympathy. You don't deserve him losing his job. You don't deserve... I don't deserve what? Harper said quietly. The reporters froze, microphones angled back toward her. Jenna's lips curled. The life he built, the company he built, the future he built. You were dead weight. You still are. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Harper stayed still, too tired to fight venom with venom. Jenna, he destroyed your life too. Why blame me? Because you get to walk away clean, Jenna snapped. You get pity, you get support. And me? I get mockery, headlines calling me reckless, stupid, disposable. Her voice cracked. I wasn't disposable. For the first time, Harper saw it beneath the cruelty, beneath the ambition. Jenna was drowning too. But then the crowd erupted in gasps. A car screeched to a stop outside the glass doors. Black, expensive, familiar. Reporters turned. The passenger door swung open. Christopher stumbled out, hair disheveled, shirt wrinkled, security following behind him. Somehow he had escaped the back entrance. Somehow he had forced himself into the chaos. He pushed past the cameras, ignoring the guards' shouts. His eyes found Harper. Wild, desperate. "I need to talk to you," he said, voice ragged. "Alone." Landon stepped forward immediately. "You're not going near her." But Christopher wasn't looking at Landon. He was looking at his wife, as if she were the last remaining thread holding his world together. "Harper," he pleaded, "if you walk away now, everything ends. Please, hear me out." Harper's pulse hammered, not from fear, from the unmistakable sense that the next words spoken would determine everything. Before she could answer, a reporter shouted, "Christopher, is it true you plan to take custody of the baby without Harper's consent?" Christopher froze. Cameras zoomed in. And then, he opened his mouth to respond, and every soul in that lobby leaned forward, waiting for the lie or for the truth. Christopher stood frozen beneath the harsh flashes of cameras, sweat glistening across his forehead, breath trembling. The crowd pressed in, hungry, impatient, sensing blood in the water. Reporters shouted over one another, their questions slicing through the cold air. "Is it true you plotted to remove Harper from your life? Did you intend to take custody of the baby without her consent? Did you manipulate medical and financial documents to trap your wife? Were you violent behind closed doors?" The accusations pummeled him like stones. Harper felt Emily tremble beside her. Evelyn stepped in to support the girl, while Margaret stood firmly at Harper's other side. Landon placed himself subtly in front of them, a human shield against the chaos. Christopher swallowed hard, lips curling into a desperate half-smile. I love my wife. I would never hurt her." "You're misinterpreting everything." A collective groan rolled through the reporters. Landon spoke under his breath. "He's digging his grave." Harper didn't blink. "You plan to take full custody," one reporter pressed, shoving a microphone toward him. "We have the memo." Christopher's face twisted. "It wasn't like that. My parents were advising Harper isn't stable enough." Harper straightened, her voice slicing through his excuses. "I'm not stable?" The entire lobby fell silent. Cameras swung toward her, hungry for every word. Harper stepped forward, not behind Landon, not behind her mother. She stood alone, powerful in her calm. "In the hospital 2 days ago," she said steadily, "I almost collapsed from the stress he caused. While I was begging for help, Christopher told me I was inconvenient. He said hospital visits were too expensive." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Jenna turned pale. Christopher's mouth hung open in wordless shock. "And while I was fighting to breathe," Harper continued, "he was fighting to save his promotion." Murmurs spread like wildfire. "Mrs. Ellington," a reporter began, "are you saying your husband neglected your medical emergency?" Harper met the cameras head-on. "Yes." Christopher lurched forward. "You're lying, Harper. Our baby." "Our baby," she repeated softly. "You never wanted this child. You signed documents giving your family medical control before our wedding. You called our baby a mistake in your own recordings." Jenna clasped a hand over her mouth. Christopher looked as though he'd been physically struck. "You weren't supposed to hear that. Evelyn shouldn't have." "Stop blaming other people," Harper said. "Look at what you did." A reporter shouted, "Christopher, do you deny the authenticity of the files leaked today?" Christopher opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. His voice cracked. I can explain." But the crowd was done listening. Another reporter yelled, "Is it true you abandoned a previous child and denied financial support?" All eyes shot to Emily. Emily backed up, fear freezing her limbs. "Yes," she whispered, "he abandoned us." Her voice echoed like a stone thrown into still water. Christopher's panic ignited. "She's lying." "She's not my—" Landon cut him off. "Her birth certificate says otherwise." Chaos exploded. Cameras flashed relentlessly. Reporters shouted questions faster than anyone could answer. Someone outside began chanting, "Accountability, accountability." Others joined. Harper watched the truth spread like wildfire, fast, unstoppable, cleansing. Christopher shook uncontrollably, turning toward her with one last desperate plea. "Harper, please, don't let them destroy me. I made mistakes, but I can fix this." Harper's voice was quiet but lethal. "You destroyed yourself." Security seized his arms. Christopher screamed, "Harper, don't you walk away from me, don't you—" But she already had. And as she turned from him, The crowd parted like a curtain, revealing someone she hadn't expected. A woman in an expensive suit, immaculate hair, cold eyes. Christopher's mother. She stepped forward slowly, staring at Harper with a blade-sharp expression. "Congratulations," she said. "You've brought shame to our entire family." Harper didn't flinch. "Your family brought shame on itself." But Christopher's mother smiled, not with defeat, with threat. "This isn't over, Harper. You've won the public, but you haven't won the courts." The courthouse hallway smelled faintly of old wood and polished tile, its echoing chambers humming with restrained tension. Harper walked slowly, her hand resting over her belly, her mother on one side and Emily on the other. Evelyn followed, quiet but steady, and Landon walked a short distance behind them, close enough to protect, far enough not to overwhelm. Outside, protesters and supporters lined the steps, holding signs demanding justice, accountability, and protection for vulnerable families. Reporters swarmed like bees, but court security formed a human wall, guiding Harper through the crowd and into the courtroom. Today wasn't about the press. It was about truth being carved into law. Inside, Christopher sat at the defendant's table with high-powered attorneys flanking him. He looked thinner, older, eyes hollow from weeks of scandal, hatred from the public, and the collapse of his carefully crafted image. His mother sat behind him, lips pressed so tightly they seemed bloodless. His father wasn't present. Rumors said he had fled the state to avoid investigation. Harper didn't look at Christopher as she took her seat. She didn't need to. She had already seen the truth of who he was. The judge entered, and the room fell silent. "Today's proceedings," the judge announced, "address custody petitions, spousal protection orders, financial misconduct claims, and allegations of coercion and fraud." Christopher's lead attorney rose. "Your Honor, my client has been publicly maligned. The evidence against him has been taken out of context." But the judge lifted a hand. "Sit down. We will begin with statements from Mrs. Harper Ellington." Whispers fluttered through the room. Harper stood. Her legs trembled, but her voice did not. "Your Honor," she began, "I loved my husband. I trusted him. And he used that trust to isolate me, belittle me, and trap me legally and financially. He forged documents. He hid critical medical permissions. He attempted to take custody of our unborn child through deceit." She paused. "But I'm not here because he hurt me emotionally. I'm here because his actions endangered my child's life." Emily squeezed her hand from behind. Margaret wiped a tear. Even Evelyn had to look down to hide her trembling lip. Christopher's attorney scoffed. "She's exaggerating. And she has no proof." Harper turned to the judge. "I would like to submit the recordings, documents, and testimonies collected over the last month." Landon stepped forward, placing a thick folder onto the evidence tray. "Everything has been verified by independent investigators." The judge reviewed the documents briefly, then nodded to the bailiff. "Play the first recording." Christopher's voice filled the courtroom. Cold, calculated, vicious. His mother's voice followed, then his father's, then Jenna's. A collective wave of shock passed through the gallery. Even the judge's expression shifted from neutral to grim disapproval. Christopher's attorney stood abruptly. "We object. These recordings were collected illegally. They were collected by the victim of your client's misconduct," the judge said sharply. "And corroborated by internal Hailtech servers. The objection is overruled." Christopher's composure cracked. He slammed a fist against the table. "This is a setup. They're all lying. My daughter is lying." The judge banged the gavel. "One more outburst, and you will be removed." Silence. Evelyn then stepped forward, voice trembling but clear as she detailed Christopher's manipulation, threats, falsified evaluations, and the forced NDA attempt. When she finished, Emily rose. The entire room seemed to hold its breath. "My father left my mother to struggle alone," Emily said quietly, "and now he wants to take Harper's baby like he took everything from us. Please, please don't let him hurt them." When she sat down, even Christopher's attorney looked shaken. The judge straightened. "My ruling is as follows." The room went still. "Mrs. Ellington is granted full custody of the unborn child." Christopher's head snapped up in horror. "A permanent restraining order is placed against Mr. Hale." Margaret exhaled shakily. "Furthermore, Mr. Hale will face criminal charges related to coercion, fraud, and corporate misconduct." And finally, Mrs. Ellington is entitled to substantial financial restitution. Gasps erupted. Christopher shot to his feet. You can't do this, Harper. Please, everyone's turning against me. You have to help me. Her eyes met his for the first time that day. I don't owe you anything, she said softly. Security approached him, and for the first time in his life, Christopher Hale looked truly afraid. As they dragged him away, a bailiff approached Harper. Ma'am, he said, there's someone waiting for you outside. She frowned. Who? He smiled faintly. A man who says today is not the end, but the beginning. The courthouse doors opened, and sunlight spilled across the stone steps like a quiet blessing. Harper stepped out slowly, one hand resting on her belly, the other gripping the railing for balance. The winter air was crisp but gentle, no longer biting at her skin. For the first time in a very long time, the world didn't feel heavy. It felt possible. A small crowd waited beyond the barricades, not reporters, not protesters, but people who had followed her story, women holding signs that read, "We believe you. Justice for survivors, and your voice saved us too." Harper pressed a hand to her heart. She never imagined her pain would touch strangers, much less give them strength. Emily ran ahead of her, cheeks pink, smiling for the first time in days. Margaret walked behind them with a protective pride that softened her stern edges. Evelyn stood quietly to the side, shoulders no longer hunched, as if speaking the truth had lifted a mountain off her back. Then Harper saw him. Landon Pierce waited at the bottom of the stairs, coat open, breath forming small clouds in the cold air. He didn't wave. He didn't call her name. He simply stood there, steady, grounded, a presence she could lean on without losing herself. When Harper reached him, he spoke softly. "It's done." She nodded. "It's done." He hesitated, searching her face. "How do you feel?" Harper looked up at the sky. "Free." The word lingered between them, warm and real. Landon exhaled a breath he'd been holding. "There's something I want to show you," he said, "if you're willing." He offered his arm. Harper glanced at her mother, who gave her a subtle, emotional nod. Emily squeezed her sleeve, whispering, "Go. You deserve good things." Harper let Landon guide her to a sleek black car parked at the curb. Not a flashy one, quiet luxury, fitting him. The drive was peaceful, winding through the city she once feared she'd lose. They crossed the bridge into the Hamptons as sunlight glimmered off the water. They stopped in front of a small beachfront home. White, clean lines, soft wood, not ostentatious, peaceful. Harper blinked. "Why are we here?" Landon's voice softened. "Because I bought this place 2 years ago. I meant it as an escape from work, but I never used it, not once." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "It didn't feel like home, not until today." Confusion flickered across her face. "Landon?" He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded document. "This," he said, "is a co-ownership agreement. Your name goes first. No conditions, no strings. This is your home if you want it. A safe place for you and your child. Whether I'm in your life or not is your choice." Harper's breath caught. No one had ever offered her something without expecting to own her in return. Tears welled in her eyes. "Why would you do this for me?" Landon met her gaze without flinching. "Because you fought for yourself long before anyone fought for you. Because you saved others without knowing it. Because you deserve a life built on respect, not fear." He paused. "And because somewhere along the way, I fell in love with you." The wind lifted her hair. The waves whispered against the shore. Harper felt her heart expand not from dependence, but from possibility. She placed her hand gently over his. "I don't want someone to save me," she said softly. "I want someone to stand beside me." Landon smiled, the rare, unguarded kind. "Then let me stand here." Harper looked at the house again. The ocean, the horizon, a new life, a real one. She breathed in deeply and whispered, "Yes." Emily cheered behind them. Margaret wiped tears. Evelyn smiled like someone witnessing a sunrise. For the first time, Harper felt whole. She had lost everything that was meant to break her, and in losing it, she found the life she was meant to live. Her baby kicked gently, as if agreeing. Harper laughed through her tears. This time, it wasn't the end of a story. It was the beginning of her freedom. So, that's the end of our story. And if you're still here, Right now, listening to these last words, it means something in Harper's journey touched you in a way you maybe weren't expecting. Maybe it reminded you of a moment you survived. Maybe it whispered a little courage into a place inside you that still hurts. Life has a way of breaking us open, doesn't it? But like Marcus Aurelius once wrote, what stands in the way becomes the way. Pain becomes strength. Loss becomes clarity. And the people who try to destroy us often become the reason we rise higher than we ever imagined. Harper didn't win because she was perfect. She won because she refused to stay small. And that's something every one of us can carry into our own lives. Choose yourself. Walk away from what harms you. And open the door to the life you actually deserve. If this story moved you, even a little, please like the video, share it with someone who might need it today, and subscribe to the channel. We're building a community where every story heals a different part of us. And if you're still here, it means you belong here.